You are one reaction away from losing everything you built, and the terrifying part is that you don't even see it coming. By the time you finish watching this video, you will understand exactly why your emotions are hijacking your decisions, why the people you admire most seem untouchable by chaos, and how you can build a kind of internal control that changes not just how you act, but who you actually are. And there's one thing almost nobody talks about, something hiding underneath all the advice about breathing exercises and mindfulness apps that makes all the difference. We'll get there. Most people believe that their reactions are just them. That's just how I am, they say. I get angry easily, I shut down under pressure, I say things I regret. And the reason this belief is so dangerous is not that it's entirely wrong, it's that it feels completely true. Because your nervous system has been running the same patterns for so long that they feel like personality. They feel like identity, but here's what nobody tells you about this. A reaction is not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of what you were never taught to do with what you feel. And that is so different. Think about the last time you reacted in a way you weren't proud of. Maybe it was snapping at someone you love. Maybe it was shutting down in a moment that required you to show up. Maybe it was saying yes when every part of you was screaming no. What was the real cost? Not just the awkward silence afterward, not just the apology you had to make, but the quiet erosion of your own self-respect. Because every time you act against your own values, something inside you keeps a score. And that score matters more than most people realize. Here's what actually happening beneath the surface. And this is the part that changes everything. Underneath everything, every impulsive reaction, underneath every emotional explosion or anxious withdrawal, there is a threat response. Your brain is relentless mission to protect you. Read certain situations as danger, not physical danger, but social danger. The threat of rejection, the threat of being seen as weak, the threat of losing control or losing love. And the moment that threat signal fires, rational thinking goes offline. You are no longer the person you want to be. You are the person your fear has always been. And that's the emotional core of this entire conversation. Fear, not anger, not sadness, not impulsiveness. It's fear. Fear is the engine running underneath almost every reaction you wish you could take back. Fear of not being enough, fear of not being seen, fear of being left behind. And the cruel irony is this. The harder you fight that fear with force, trying to suppress it, override it, white-knuckle your way through it, the stronger it gets. So if willpower isn't the answer, what is? The people who have genuinely mastered their reactions aren't the ones who feel less. They feel everything, but they've developed something rare, a gap, a small, deliberate, almost invisible space between what happens to them and how they respond. Viktor Frankl called it the last of human freedoms. That gap is where your entire life can change, not through some dramatic transformation, but through thousands of tiny moments where you choose awareness over automaticity. And the way you build that gap is not what most self-help content will ever tell you, because it requires something that goes against everything our culture celebrates. And it requires you to feel it before you fix it. Most of the time, people try to manage their reactions by jumping straight to the solution. The technique, the hack, the script to say in an argument. But the nervous system doesn't respond to scripts, it responds to safety. And safety comes from one thing, the willingness to actually sit inside your own discomfort long enough to understand what it's telling you. This is the step that separates the people who grow from the people who just get better at performing growth. When you learn to pause and ask, not what do I do right now, but what am I actually afraid of right now, something shifts. You stop fighting the wave and start standing underneath it. And you realize that most of the reactions you've been ashamed of you were just signals from a part of you that desperately needed attention. The question is whether you're willing to listen, because what you find there might surprise you. And what it asks of you is something most people aren't ready for. Here's what personal mastery actually looks like in practice, and it's far less glamorous than the concept. It's catching yourself 3 seconds into a spiral and choosing to breathe once before you speak. It's noticing that your jaw is tightening a meeting and asking yourself what story you're already telling about what's happening. It's feeling the urge to shut down and staying present anyway. Not because it's comfortable, but because you've decided that who you're becoming matters more than the temporary relief of escaping. These are not extraordinary acts, they are ordinary acts done with extraordinary intentionality. And over time, they compound into something that looks a lot like freedom. You will still get triggered. You will still have days when fear wins. You will still say the wrong thing at the wrong moment, feel the heat rise in your chest before you can stop it, and look back with that familiar scene of wishing you had handled it differently. But here's what changes you to start to recover faster. You start to understand yourself more clearly. You start to build a relationship with your own inner world that is honest instead of fearful. And from that place, not from perfection, but from honest self-awareness, you begin to respond to life instead of reacting to it. Now, remember the question we opened with? You're one reaction away from losing everything you built. That's still true. But here's the other side of it, the one worth holding on to. You're also one response away from becoming someone you actually respect. Not a perfect version of yourself, a real one. Someone who feels the fear and acts from their values anyway. Someone who has learned that control is not about suppressing what's human. It's about being so aware of what's human in you that it can no longer drive without your permission. That is the psychology of personal mastery. Not domination over your emotions, but ownership of them. Own your reactions and your own life.